Okay, I think we're live. Oh, good. Sawadi Kap, good morning, good evening, good morning, and good evening. Sunday night, Monday morning live on planet Earth. And let's see, are we on? Oh, yeah, there we are. Okay. Facebook's on. Yeah. Who's everybody? Cool, everybody's joining. Good morning. Good morning. Good morning, Nicole. And Melody, good morning. Good night. Good evening. And can I see? No, almost. I can almost see. Anyway, yeah. Good. She says hi. Hi. Sawadee Kap. All right. So good morning, everyone. Namaste, namaskar, aloha, and it's great. I woke up early and was outside, and so glad to be back in Phuket. It's uh, there. Is that okay? Now, how do we do this? We put this. Does it go like that? Hmm. Anyway, yeah, I'm so glad to be back in Phuket because I was, and I have to have, I have to say now to everyone that unfortunately, the clinic I've been working on for a year and a half in Thailand here has ended quite strangely. That's all I can say, and I won't be able to be involved with this. So we're back, we're back to Oasis in the U.S. and I've got couple of a couple of people here that are very interested in opening one, but I'm it's a real bummer for me because I spent a whole year and a half training people. But anyway, this kind of thing always seems to happen. It's kind of my karma, and unfortunately, a lot of other people's karma. But I'm gonna still make sure that I can figure out how to take care of everybody. Um, but anyway, I just wanted to let you all know that it's what's happened. Yeah, it's a bummer. It's a bummer. It's a bummer. So, but anyway, get to wake up in Phuket, and the clouds are cumulus. There's no straight lines. There's no artificial clouds. The air is fresh. The wind. It's just amazing, 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 amazing to be alive. So, and that's what I want everyone to feel, that it's amazing to be alive. And I know what you're going through right now. A lot of you are going through stuff that you're saying amazing. It's not amazing at all. It's a bummer, and I hear you. So that's what we're all about. That's where we're all about changing that, and we will. I'm trying to get this over so I can. There we go. Is that? Yeah, but then I don't get to see the. Oh, there we go. Okay, so everybody's coming on. I think. All right, cool. All right, now let's do the. So there we go. That's that. And then where's this one? Is this fun? Is this fun? Like, don't you love to see me having trouble here? Let's get rid of that whole thing. There we go. Okay, got it. We're in it. All right. Perfect. 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 Okay, so anyway, the as you all know, we've started the the inner circle groups. Not a lot of people showing up, and it makes me wonder if the groups are necessary. I don't know. I hope so. But like 8, 10 people each time. So anyway, the groups are, as you know, 3 groups: health and healing, where we talk about health and healing; parasites, where we talk about parasites; and then CFCs, where we talk about CFCs. And for you that don't know, I'm just going to remind you that CFCs is chronically fermenting cells, which are exactly what constitute the cells in a tumor. So when the Rockefeller um, advocates and the Rockefeller language uses the word cancer, what they really are talking about is chronically fermenting cells. That's all. It's pretty easy, you know. Um, anyway, the reason we use CFCs is because chronically fermenting cells is the truth, tells you, gives you information, and doesn't scare you. Because why should it scare you? Because that's what it is. And now that you know what it is, you can say, okay, so how do we undo this, right? But if you hear that other word, that ridiculous word, it has no meaning. It actually has no meaning other than people born between June 21st and July 20th. That's it. That's all it means. So it has it's useless unless you're trying to scare someone. And then it's got a lot of utility. Yeah. Okay. So now, who would try to be scaring someone? Oh, the standard of scare. That's right. So, um, all right. So this week, with the parasite group, um, we're going to talk about, is there a natural way to eliminate parasites? Because that's a lot of people want to know that because they don't like taking drugs, and I don't blame them. I don't like taking drugs either. So we're going to talk. We'll talk about that, and then we'll open it to other any questions you may have. And the CFC group is going to be about melatonin. Why take melatonin extra? Why? Don't we make enough? So we'll talk about that. All right. And then everyone remembers that we are on all these different platforms temporarily. We hope. I mean, temporarily. I imagine. What was it? Someone's. I just found out that Denmark is considering or already has made it prohibiting. I guess I don't know how they do it, but they're no one can access Telegram. What is it? Rumble, Facebook. I mean, all sorts of things. So we might start seeing things like that happening. And if we do, I the only thing I can think of is that we there are those, and I'm sure a lot of you know a lot more than me, but I'm sure there are there are ways of communicating that are by satellite that we don't have to go through the system here. So if any of you are good and understand that stuff, why don't we share it all with us, and let's figure out how to develop our own just in case platform. Okay, just in case. Is there a way we can do it? Even if we can't see each other, can we at least hear? That would be fantastic. So if anyone has any ideas on that, please share it, because what's coming up is crazy. I mean, I'm sure you may have all know. I mean, you may know. I don't know if you know or not. But you remember last year in May, not this year in May, they were the WHO wanted to have a treaty signed where um, all the countries of the world would agree that in the case of some sort of global emergency, a problem like a pandemic, or I guess a energy outage, or war, or whatever, food shortage, they could use anything. In that, under that, if that were to happen, then the United Nations would become the world government. and all the other nations would lose their sovereignty. It didn't pass. So the United Nations held a meeting at the General Assembly, and they just recently, and they have a way of voting where you don't vote. So what they do is they propose something. By not objecting, you are tacitly approving. And so 193 countries apparently tacitly approved that bill. That not bill, that treaty. I don't know what it is. But now, what does that mean? That means we can look forward to having some sort of urgent situation and that whole thing start playing out. And one of the first things that they want to do is make sure they can keep track of us all. So, subcutaneous biometric ID. Anyway, it happened. So remember, the clock was at 12:58, 12:59. It struck midnight now. That's where we're at. So everybody who can figure out how we might be able to communicate when this stuff starts crashing down, that would be great. Let's do it right away today. Let's figure out how we can become a international community with some sort of technology that'll allow us to not have to depend on the internet. Or I have a feeling that those 20,000, part of those 20,000 satellites that were put up by that eccentric, really cool guy, Elon, just might, part of it might be in addition to surveillance and things like that. Sending EMF radiation to the planets, the inhabitants of the planets. In addition to that, there might also be a secondary system that they'll be able to communicate on if and when all this stuff comes down. So we should do the same somehow. So come on, I know there's people out there that you guys are, you know this stuff. You know this stuff. I don't know it. I don't even know what you call it. All right, so let's beware that, in addition to our own personal problems and our own dramas, we've got a major, incredible human drama going on right now, and it's reached a point where I never thought I'd see it. Anyway, but for now, everything except Twitter or X, it's Dr. Thomas Lodi. Okay, whether it's Facebook, YouTube, Instagram, Rumble. However, with Twitter, it's Dr. Thomas Lodi, MD. Okay, and so we're on there all the time. Also, you can stream on the website. Okay. Now, shall we get into the questions? Good idea, huh? I tried to see if you guys. Wait. Any questions? Let me see. What do I see here? I can't tell. I like to see some of your comments, but I just can't. Hey, hi everyone. Good, beautiful. Okay, well, I'm glad you're all here. So let's get started with these questions because I want to get through them, and that's one of the big complaints by you guys, that I don't get through the questions. Okay, so, and you'll have to remember that I don't just answer questions. I look at it differently, and I give it context. The reason I give it context is because that's how life is. Life is context. Yeah. Nothing is in isolation. Nothing is in isolation. Nothing. There is no thing that is not intimately part of this collective. For example, suppose you're walking on the street. Someone's filming you walking on the street, and they took away the entire background. So they took away the street, they took away the buildings, they took away everything. Just you. You would just see you with your legs going back and forth. It has no meaning. You've lost the context. Without the context, there's no meaning. If you're going to a store, if you were whatever running, so context is everything. So we need context, and that's why I do what I do. So y'all there. Wow, is it bright? Okay, so first question is from Teresa. And Teresa says, "Hello, I have been doing coffee enemas for years, but recently started doing sea salt enemas. Is there a danger in doing too many sea salt enemas in a day?" All right. Actually, this is an important point for everyone for us to discuss. Okay, enemas are a way of attempting to clean out the colon. Right? Colon is that last 5 feet or that last 1.5 meters of our 10-meter or 30-foot intestines. It's that part of the intestines where the chyme, chyme, that enters it from the small intestines has about 6 hours for all of the remaining 10 to 15% of the water necessary for living is reabsorbed. Because most of the water is reabsorbed in the small intestines, but that remaining 10 to 15% needs to be reabsorbed in the colon. And it takes about 6 hours, which means that about 6 hours after it enters there, it should be eliminated. Does that happen? Rarely, unless you are one of the 0.001% of the people on the planet who live and eat healthfully, or you have diarrhea or something like that. Otherwise, it doesn't come out, and we accumulate it. Now, what are we accumulating? We're accumulating waste, toxic waste, and there's a lot of gases and solids and liquids in there that are toxic, and they need to be eliminated. All right, they're not only not required for life and health and function, but they're also detrimental. So now the colon keeps doing its job. What's its job? Its job is it does many things. One probably the major. You can't say the major. There's that's how we think as humans. Anyway, one of the important functions of the colon is to serve as a large reservoir of microorganisms who take what we've put into it, what we've eaten and drank, and convert it into, through their metabolism, they produce byproducts which are absolutely essential for our life. One example is when we eat what's called soluble fiber. It can't be digested in our small intestines, and it arrives in the large intestines, and there the microorganisms can convert them into short-chain fatty acids, which are essential for life. I mean, that's just one. By the way, just in case you were ever wondering why you have an appendix, right? Because I'm sure you were told, we don't need it. It's vestigial. You don't need an appendix. You don't need tonsils, adenoids. You don't need those. Just take them out. And your wisdom teeth, you don't need those. Take them out. And God put like a lot of extra stuff in here that we just didn't need. And it's why he had to take a day off. It had to take a day off finally because, right? God made all those errors. Look, One of the most glaring errors that God made is forgot to cook the food. Can you believe it? Gave us tomatoes instead of tomato sauce, which we know we need for our pasta. All right. So anyway, so the appendix, as it turns out, is hanging right off. Okay, so the colon, the small intestines enters it. The last part of the colon is called the ileum. It enters it, little valve, ileocecal valve. Stuff goes in, it goes up to the ascending, transverse, descending, and out the rectum, right? But just below where that ileocecal valve is a like a pocket called the cecum. Now that cecum is larger in other animals. Oh, did I say we're animals? I'm sorry. The reason I say that is because if you had to divide everything into animal, vegetable, mineral, plant, vegetable. So I guess we're falling. Anima, movement. So anyway, we are creatures that move around. So anyway, the cecum is in a lot of organisms, a lot of mammals like us, a place where a lot of fermentation goes on. And fermentation, by the way, remember, is chronically fermenting cells, is a way of producing energy. Okay, so that's how we produce. That's one way of producing energy. The way that our healthy cells produce energy, as you all know, is called oxidative phosphorylation. It goes through the mitochondria, right? We lose that ability because we knock out a significant percentage of the mitochondria because we live in a toxic world, and our body says, "Wait a minute, we've got to learn how to survive on this very inefficient system of fermentation," and that's what happens as we wind up with CFCs. Anyway, nevertheless, the fundamental, primary, easiest way of producing energy from the carbohydrates, glucose, is fermentation. However, so you only get 2 energy packages, ATP, for every glucose molecule. So very inefficient, but it works, and it's quick. So a lot of microorganisms use that. That's all they use. They don't need all the other stuff. I mean, they don't need to go through oxidative phosphorylation. So anyway, certain animals have large cecums where they're doing a lot of fermenting, and one in particular that we can all relate to is the gorilla. So the gorilla, if you know the gorilla sits on the ground pretty much throughout the day, and with a great dexterity is like pulling apart leaves and eating them. They don't run around, they don't swing from the trees that much. Their cousins, the orangutans, the chimps, and bonobos do, and the gibbons, yeah, they do, and they have different shape. They have long fingers and very short thumbs, so they couldn't do this. But the gorillas, like us, they can do this. Anyway, they're called hindgut fermenters because they sit around and they eat and they pass gas all day, and that's it. But they get 50% approximately of their energy from fermentation. Okay. Have a larger cecum. In fact, all apes, all simians, what's the other word for simians? Primates without tails, which are called apes, have a longer colon than small intestines. Now, the reason they call it small and large is stupid. Small intestines, it's because the diameter is small, but they're long. It's longer than, for us, ours is what, about 25 feet? What is that, 1 point? 8 point something meters is a lot. All right, so it's small in diameter, okay, and then the colon is large in diameter. They call that the large intestines, So it's just nomenclature. So anyway, the most of the apes, I mean, all the they have the ratio of the large intestines or the colon to the small intestines is greater. So they have more large than they do small. On the other hand, if you look at the bovine and the other you know, creatures that eat plants like herbivores, there is the opposite. They have more of of the small intestines, which is what we have. All right, so ours is definitely larger, but we still have a cecum, and so we're kind of like right in there. But we're definitely not like the dogs and cats. So the dogs and cats have very short, straight. They have almost no colon, and they have very long, short and straight, and they just because stuff. When they eat that flesh, it's got to get in and get out quickly, because when flesh hangs around anywhere, especially if it's warm and wet, it gets pretty funky, pretty funky, and it produces even funkier stuff called biotoxins and blah blah blah. So, got to get it out quickly. All right. So, and they have all the enzymatic apparatus to do that. They have certain enzymes, get it out. All right. So we're not in that category. We're in the category with, long. So the ratio of our intestines relative to the length of our trunk, our torso, is anywhere from 8 to 12 times. Whereas if you look at the ratio of the dogs and cats, and when I say dogs and cats, I mean wolves, hyenas, foxes, tigers, lions, leopards, house cats, house dogs. The ratio of their intestines to their torso is maybe 3 to 1, 5 to 1. Anyway, these in case you're not liking what I'm saying, it's not an opinion. It's just the way it is. So I can't say it any other way. I can't say I think. I just have to say that's the way it is. Okay. So anyway, our colon, we're going to go back to enemas. So we want to clean it out because we're not eating right. We're not living right. We're not doing that. We have to do it. So when you do an enema, now there's two kinds of enemas. There's a retention enema and there's a cleansing enema. Okay. Two different purposes. It sounds like, Teresa, that you were using the coffee enema as a cleansing enema, because the sea salt enema is a cleansing enema, whereas the coffee enema is supposed to be a retention enema. So in a cleansing enema, you put in the salt water. Why do you put in salt water? You put in salt water because we've got salt in our blood. In fact, so you don't want, and because of the laws of nature, laws of osmosis, you don't want to have too much salt, right? Because that's going to pull water out of your body, and you don't want to have too little salt because that's going to help make you retain water. So you'd like to get it right about the same. And ours is, our blood's about 0.9% salty. So you don't need to sit there and get some chemistry equipment to figure that out. All you do is say, okay, well, has anyone ever had a cut on their finger or hand? Okay. You ever lick it? You know what that tastes like? That's about the taste of it. All right. It's very, very minimal. So you get maybe a quart, a liter, and put in half a teaspoon. It should have that little bit of saltiness. So if you're gonna do a cleansing enema, you're gonna probably do 2 or maybe 2 liters, 3 liters, and you're gonna clean out your colon. Now it's only gonna clean out the descending, a small part, the latter part, the distal part of this descending colon, and the rectal vault. Right, and then there's the sigmoid. There's the sigmoid colon. The last part of the colon, as it descends, has an S shape, so they call it sigmoid. And then, so that's all you're cleaning out. You can't get much further because you don't have enough pressure to get up there. And then you clean that out, and then the rest of the stuff will move down throughout the day. Now, can you do too many of those? Well, I guess you could if you tried, but For the average person who's got to live their life and do something else besides do enemas all day, it'd be pretty hard to do too many. So, for example, let's say you did one in the morning, you did one at noon, you did one at night. That's not too many. You're only cleaning out the latter part of the descending colon and the rectum, which is good because you don't need that stuff. If you ever think you made a mistake by having a colonic or an enema, just look at what came out and say, "What? I made a mistake. I want that back." Nah, probably won't say that. Now, retention enemas are what you do after you've done a cleansing enema. So if you're going to do a coffee enema, you've done the cleansing enema first, then you do the coffee enema. And you do the coffee enema so that you have very concentrated, low volume. You don't want more than a cup, right? So you start with a couple cups. You take 3 tablespoons of the right coffee. S.A. Wilson, I guess, is the most well-known. You can order it from Canada, or you can have your own if you have access to an organic coffee grower, and you have a roaster. The coffee is roasted for about 45 seconds, a very short time, just enough to activate it but not to deplete it. All right, so and then you get those palmitates, which are very important. They get absorbed up through your portal circulation into your liver, and they stimulate your liver to, number one, get rid of secrete bile, which means it's cleansing. Number two, to upregulate an enzyme called glutathione S-transferase. And guess what? There's no deep research on it. No one's proving this. Although there used to be. I had it. It was on it's gone now. It no longer exists on the internet. You cannot find, or if you can, please send me what I just said about the palmitates from coffee that stimulate glutathione S-transferase. Anyway, there's no proof. No. There's no proof that this works. However, and you got to have proof if you're going to make sure something works, unless, of course, you're talking about, I don't know, anything that Pfizer might make or Moderna. Then proof. We'll get our proof. Come on. So anyway, to answer your question, Teresa. If you want to do 2 a day, in the morning is great, cleansing. You can do one in the evening. It's nice to clean up. But the more important thing, equally as important, more important actually, is that you eat healthy. If you eat healthy, which is healthy for humans, that is, you're eating uncooked plant food. And if you're eating uncooked plant food, the way the earth produced it, can you imagine what a crazy concept? We're going to eat the food the earth produced? Who made the earth? Oh, that's right. Yeah. Anyway, but if you're eating that way, you'll see that you won't even need it. You just, yeah. Okay, so we need an appendix, because the appendix, by the way, is the nursery for all of the microorganisms. They're in there, trillions of them. And if you have an event where you, like, let's say we were in a natural world and you accidentally, or not accidentally, actually, you were eating something and there was some poison leaves or whatever in it, got in and it wiped out some of your gut biome, it would be replenished immediately. And the fear about losing too many microorganisms by doing enemas or colonics is crazy, because we have like 100 trillion in there, and and whatever you push out you're gonna immediately reproduce. These guys are, remember, they have a new generation every hour. A new generation. Now, next question is from Jennifer, and she says, do you feel there is any benefit from a stand on vibration plate. I see it advertised as lymph drainage and weight loss. Would it be the same benefit as a small trampoline for rebound exercise? Yeah, okay, so that that's a good question because we when I when I have a clinic, we have a vibrational plate, and the rebounder is something you can do at home. And a rebounder basically is just a small trampoline. You just go up and down. It's not high jumping, it's just you basically just your feet just oh your toes can actually stay on it. It's just as long as you get that rhythmic motion up and down because that just moves your lymphatics. All right. So, but the vibration plate, remember what the vibration plate is it's vibrating. And now to decide on whether or not you have a good vibration plate. So yeah, it does work. It does support lymphatic drainage, but not directly. It does it by improving circulation, whereas the rebounder actually directly pulls down the lymph. And contrary to what people say about the lymphatics not having, now the veins do not have an intrinsic beat, and therefore the veins absolutely require a muscle contraction. Lymphatics do have this intrinsic uh, mechanism, but it's not enough. It's enough if you're just lying down all day, and it's not even that's not enough. You wind up getting congested, lymphatic congestion. Anyway, the lymphatics are important to keep clean and flowing because remember, flow is health, right? Like you're walking along, and you're hiking, and you're up in the mountains, and you're hiking. You're thirsty, and there's a river going by. Well, you're gonna no thoughts. You'll bend over, drink some water. Now, about an hour later, you get thirsty again, and now you notice that the stream that came off from the river has wound up as a pond. You're not going to drink out of the pond because it's stagnant. It's the same water, but it's stagnant. So when you have stagnation, you have stuff. Okay. And same with lymphatics, blood. We want it all flowing, circulation flowing. Okay. So if you've had lymph nodes removed, if you had surgery, you had a Whipple, you had a colon resection, you had a breast surgery, and they took out lymph nodes, which they should be arrested for, but they took out lymph nodes. Now you've got the lymphatic flow is all different, right? And so you really you have to just make sure. So and what they tell us, they'll tell you like if you had surgery here and they took out 20 lymph nodes, which is ridiculous, even 10, whatever, one. They'll say no lymphatic therapy, no, because you're going to spread the tumor. That's just that kind of thinking can't be by a doctor, can't be by someone that went to medical school. You can't say that, right? It's not a doctor that said that, right? Unfortunately, it is. Lymphatics are one of the major detoxification drainage systems of the tissues. You got to keep that flowing. If not, you accumulate that which is considered metabolic waste. You're going to accumulate it, and that's not going to be healthy. No, you don't want to do that. All right, number two. It is also the transportation communication system for the immune system, which is kind of important. So it's got to be moving. It can't be stuck. It can't be stuck. There's no way you could ever think that allowing it to be congested is going to be in your best interest. I don't know. There's no way. You can't think of it. But they do. They actually not only think it, they say it. Anyway, it's wrong. And by the way, any doctors out there who disagree with me, let's talk about it. Show me the benefit of not allowing your lymphatic system to move. Okay. So anyway, these so we got to keep it moving. And one of the things, and movement, our physical movement, our muscle contraction does increase lymphatic flow, circulation, all that stuff. So it's very, very important. Okay. Now, the what do you call it? The vibrational plates, right? So what they do is as I said, these lymphatics are stimulated as a secondary result of the increased blood flow, right? Right. And remember, we're removing toxins and wastes. That's what's going on. Okay. And so anyway, also if you've got situations where you're having edema and anything, it's going to help with that. All right. And it boosts the immune system because now you've increased the dynamics and the flow of the immune system with the white blood cells and the macrophage, all those guys. They need to. That's how they get around. That's their train. They jump on that. Okay. So anyway, so if you're going to do those, you can start with short sessions, 5 to 10 minutes, and you can gradually increase, until you're more comfortable with it. You can go up to 20 minutes, 30 minutes, an hour if you wanted. Okay. So usually you stand on it with your legs apart, about the width of your shoulders, and there's different movements. Usually it'll come with instructions, right? Because by like standing on one leg or bending over, bending backwards, and all that, it's now vibrating different muscles, and a lot of these muscles are core body muscles, which is good for improving grip strength, right? Because your overall strength core is correlated with longevity, correlated with survivability in any condition, especially CFCs. All right. So now if you're going to buy a machine, they're going to have things. One is the rate. Make sure you can adjust the rate, right? Because it's not just on and off. You can adjust the rate. You can go faster or slower, right? All right. Okay. So and the a lot of them have different. I guess it's rate, but they're going and some are going. They're all these different ones. They have different purposes, different effects on the body, and you can program it so that you can just go through each one, right? And get the benefits of each one. They're all helping you, because what they're doing is when you're getting vibrated, your body, you may not realize it, but you're actually contracting muscles to maintain your biomechanical homeostasis. So you're doing that. So you're actually you're moving, and you're getting the benefits of exercising your core, and also some of your extremities. So it's actually very good. But you want to be able to adjust both the intensity and the frequency, right? Okay. So now, anyway, if you go too high, there's some studies that say if you go too high, you can have problems, right? I guess so. Yeah, it's just anything, but you're not going to go. You can. Everybody's reasonable. I don't. I don't know. I don't know why they give these warnings, because especially if someone's not well, they're not going to overdo something that is not. Because if you're on that vibrational plate at too high of a frequency, you're going to be so uncomfortable. Why would you do it? You wouldn't. So anyway, so the vibrational plate causes your muscles to contract to maintain biomechanical homeostasis, and in turn, blood flow increases, and in turn, lymphatic flow increases. So it's very helpful, right? All right. So the rebounder, on the other hand, remember, because you're going up and down like that, you're actually directly you go up and down. You directly move lymphatic flow, right? Okay. The other thing the rebounder does is that it increases heart rate, blood pressure, and increases your overall hemodynamics, and so it's good. So I would say do both, because you can get, this, not expensive to get a little rebounder, and then get your vibrational plate, and the vibrational plate will help you develop some core strength, which is good too, especially if you're in a condition, a physical condition where you can't really do a lot of exercise and movement, not exercise but movement, right? Okay, so I would definitely get both, um, if you could. There was even one we had when I was over here in Phuket at Lifeco. We had a standing one and a one, just a table that vibrated for the people who were actually unable to, would not be able to stand on the plate. Yeah, yeah, which they should have in ICUs, don't you think? Yeah, they should also have beamers in ICUs, right? Yeah. So I wish I could. I would love to have to be able to build a hospital, a real hospital, where we had ozone dialysis, where we had vitamin C, where we had beamers, where we had colon hydrotherapy, where we had real food, where we had teaching, where we had our testing and stuff. Yeah, we had to do surgery. We've got surgeries. We can do whatever we need. We've got all that other stuff. Uh, Ports in, whatever. We can do all that. We can do anything, but not using just drugs. You use drugs when you have to, but other than that, you don't use them, right? Because a drug is a synthetic, artificial thing. So if you can use something that's not synthetic and artificial, you want to use that, right? Okay, yeah, yeah. So, anyway. This is from Tommy. All right, so so Tommy's saying, since CFC is a mitochondrial problem, which we all agree, right? Right. How effective and safe are supplements to strengthen mitochondria, namely methylene blue, NMN, NAD? If okay, then how helpful to deal with CFCs? All right, well, methylene blue is a pretty amazing molecule. I think it was discovered like 1870s, 1890s, and it was as a dye, and for textiles. But they eventually used it. It came to be very useful in as a dye in biological specimens. It would help you distinguish different tissues and things. So it's very good. It has that utility. But then medicinally, how did it help? Well, it turned out to be like anti-malarial big time. It reversed methemoglobinemia, and it was an antidote for cyanide. So it's still kept in ERs. It's there. So and what it does is amazing. So uh, optimal dosing and all that hasn't quite been uh, ascertained. Um, but therapeutically, you can give it intravenously or you can take it orally. Um, and it's also used as in photodynamic therapy. But anyway, uh, now because of what it does is something very, very interesting and very amazing. When we talk about oxidative phosphorylation, we talk about glucose turning into pyruvate getting into the mitochondria, right, and then turning into acetyl CoA and going through the process to the what's called the Krebs cycle, right? Now, in that process, what happens is in the mitochondria, the and we're not, and there's no need to understand. There's no need to go into extreme detail, but just so you understand it, it's pretty amazing. So what's happening is there's something called the electron transport train, and what happens is molecules go in, and the electrons are separated, and you develop a gradient that pulls protons up. Anyway, the end result is that you have all these extra electrons that are given uh, to, and are housed in a molecule called ATP. So you got all these electrons, which is energy. So ATP, adenosine triphosphate, you wind up with that, right? And so all a cell has to do when it needs energy, when it needs to do something like it's got to power one of its enzymes, it grabs an ATP and with an enzyme is able to take off the last of the phosphates, and it gets all this free energy and keeps it moving. So it's just like a carrier thing. But what's interesting is that from the first part of the um, electron transport system, and then there's the first and second. There's a loss of electrons, and that's where when we talk about why are mitochondria the most vulnerable part of the cell. So when you're living in the 21st century and you've got all these toxins, why are the mitochondria getting knocked out and not like the ribosomes and the lysosomes? Why the mitochondria? Because they have all this oxygen, and that oxygen going through turns into free radicals. So from step 1 to step 4 is where a lot of the free radicals are generated, right? Methylene blue comes along and says skip 2, 3, and 4 and pulls it from 1 to 4. Whoa, that's pretty cool. So now you don't have to get all those free radicals, and then you still get to make all this energy. That's pretty amazing, right? Yeah, that's what it does. And so for that reason, there's something called the vasoplegic syndrome, which happens in when they do cardiopulmonary bypass, cabbage, or what do they call it? Coronary artery bypass. Anyway, when they're doing that, you know when they do those surgeries, they actually have to divert because your heart's not pumping now. They have to stop your heart. It's crazy. It's crazy. They stop your heart, but okay, you still got to be alive. So now that your heart's stopped, it's not. They've got it. Your blood comes out, and it's got to be oxygenated and get rid of the carbon dioxide and come back in. And you got to stay alive while you're doing this. Anyway, when people come out of that surgery, a lot of times they get what's called vasoplegic syndrome. Plegic is like you've heard of paraplegic, quadriplegic. It's like unable to move, lost the ability to move. So vasoplegic is where they come out of that bypass, and their blood vessels aren't contracting or anything, and they have very, very low pressure, right? Methemoglobin can reverse that. I mean, I'm sorry, methylene blue can reverse that. Yeah. One other word. If you've ever had chemotherapy, you might have heard of cyclophosphamide, also called Cytoxan. It has a cousin called ifosfamide. And when you get ifosfamide, you have to get this other drug called Mesna to try to prevent the problems, because ifosfamide will cause extreme neurotoxicity. Guess what you can give when you give the ifosfamide? Methylene blue, and that won't happen. Do they do that in oncology centers? No. Anyway, okay, so that's that. Now, what is methemoglobinemia? Okay, because that's another thing, and I want to bring this up too, because it's relative to what we're talking about. Okay, methemoglobinemia. Okay, hemoglobin carries oxygen. Hemoglobin has iron. We know that. Okay, so now we've talked about this in many contexts. Iron has a 3+ and a 2+ existence. In the 3+, it's called ferric, And in the 2 plus, it's called ferrous. And the ferric is inactive. It's a storage form. And that, by the way, is what ferritin carries, is ferric. Ferritin, remember ferritin to iron ratios, ferritin to hemoglobin ratios? That's 3 plus. The 2 plus is active. By the way, the body can only absorb the 2 plus, which is why one of the benefits of having stomach acid and not drinking alkaline water. So I'm talking about pHs of 9 and 10. That's crazy. So anyway, but that, and then also ascorbic acid, ascorbate, vitamin C. Now, so we can absorb the 2 plus. So anyway, what happens in methemoglobinemia is when your hemoglobin is stuck in that 3 plus position. It can't get to the 2 plus, and you can be born with a problem. You can be born not able to do that, or you can get exposed to toxins in the environment. And one crazy thing is that people, I don't know if you guys remember, but back when the whole HIV thing was starting, do you remember that? I remember because I was an intern, and I had we were allowed to have 20. Each intern could have 20 patients. And you're talking about really sick people in the hospital. So, and I was in New York, so I had about 15 of my 20 were HIV. And that's another story. Is there an HIV? The answer is no, but that's another story. So, anyway, when they first started to talk about this, when it was first being introduced, I was in medical school. So I wasn't even an intern yet. I was in medical school, and they were calling it gay men's lymphadenopathy syndrome because it was happening to gay men, and they had a lot of lymph nodes. So they called it gay men's lymphadenopathy syndrome. And then they discovered what they had already made. They pretended to discover, Robert Gallo pretended to discover, even though he's the guy that made it. Anyway, that it was a virus. And it was very similar to this other virus that was pretty much caused leukemias and stuff in Japan called HTLV-1, human T-cell lymphocyte virus 1. So they called this HTLV-3. So it was HTLV-3 at that time. It later got renamed to HIV. Anyway, the reason I'm telling you this is because this was a time, I guess, in New York City where it was kind of like a Sodom and Gomorrah type atmosphere. I mean, there were like the most crazy sex things. I mean, anonymous people, just large clubs where people were. It just was. If you heard of it, I'm not going to tell you what they did, but it was just, you'd have to be really. I don't know. I can't imagine the mindset of doing this. But anyway, what they found is that there's something called amyl nitrate, which is like a nitrate. So if anyone's ever had a relative or themselves with heart angina, and they put nitroglycerin under your tongue, and that dilates the artery, and you get the blood flow, the pain goes away. But they have another one called amyl nitrate, which is, they call them poppers. Yeah, you open it, and then immediately opens your heart, stuff like that. Okay, so anyway, they abused it. They used it during their sex games, and it's crazy. But that can result also in the methemoglobinemia, meaning it keeps the iron in the 3 plus state. So the methylene blue undoes that. It's fantastic. It undoes that. All right. Now, so that's even people that are born with it. Some people are born with the inability to, they're lacking an enzyme for that to keep it in the 2 plus. Now, what I think is really important for you to understand right now is that one of the most fundamental functions of vitamin C, of ascorbate, is to keep iron in the 2 plus. And it does that in multiple different systems that keep us alive and keep CFCs from growing. Very, very important. So just by taking enough ascorbate all day long, so you're going to take about 2,000 milligrams of liposomal sodium ascorbate at least 4 times a day, and or sip 7 to 7 with the water that we've talked about before. Take 8 grams in a liter and take a sip from 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. That combination will maintain your physiological ascorbate levels, which do what? They rewrite the epigenetic changes that CFCs do. So they undo that. They undo the whole CFC thing. They exhaust CFCs, their ability to protect themselves. What else do? They stop the HIF-1 alpha. They don't let the CFCs grow. I mean, that's just we're not talking about IV vitamins. We're talking about just normal, right? Just taking care of your physiological requirements. Anyway, it does this it's a part of, it's a cofactor, essential factor in these enzyme systems called dioxygenases and monooxygenase enzymes. Anyway, so what it does is it does the same old thing. It keeps iron in a 2+, not a 3+. That's its job. But if you don't do that, the enzyme doesn't work. It's crazy. So, but that's what happens with methemoglobinemia. So it works too. So for people that have methemoglobinemia, for one reason or another, you can take methylene blue or ascorbate. Ascorbate takes longer, but they usually give really low doses. I think you can give higher doses and it work, because they're talking about really low doses. All right, so 500 milligrams a day orally. It's ridiculous. All right, so now, okay, and then as I told you, methylene blue. So, but the reason is, keep in mind, if methylene blue is taking you from complex 1 in the electron transport up to complex 3, right, and you skip the areas where you produce all these free radicals, you're going to have less damage to your mitochondria. They're going to survive longer, be more efficient, right? It goes to complex 4, from 1 to 4, right? So it actually increases there's less energy lost, and so the mitochondria are better functioning. And then it also upregulates the NRF2 ARE system, which is your internal production of antioxidant enzymes in your body. So that's pretty amazing. So, I mean, not even talking about using methylene blue for the, intravenous, where they give it intravenous and they use photodynamic therapy. Not even talking about that. Just, taking it like as a daily supplement to keep your mitochondria functioning good. Because then yeah. Okay. So now, well, okay. Now, by the way, with the photodynamic therapy, you all know about that, right? They will give you an injection of methylene blue. It's usually 10 milligrams per kilogram, and it gets activated with light in about the 640 nanometer wavelength, which is considered deep red, right? It's deep red. It's a red light. That's red light, right? Okay, so the red zone is anywhere from 610 up to 700 nanometers, right? So about 640 is where that is, and that activates because it's picked up by cytochrome C oxidase and blah, 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 blah. Anyway, so it activates it, and you can actually kill the CFCs, and it's fantastic. If you go higher, it's really weird. If you go up to like the 20 milligrams of the per kilo of the methylene blue, it's going to do the opposite. It's going to hurt. It hurts you, not help you. All right. But they found it to have a great success with ovarian, breast, lung. Any of them. They're all the same, really. But the studies they've done are those, right? Okay. So anyway. Low concentrations, 10 milligrams per kilogram. So, some of the studies I've read, they've said that they think since they got such a good result with the 10, they think, why don't we give it even a little less just right? And it's probably worked. So not a lot of research has gone in this area because of the world. It's not a moneymaker. So, all right. And the other interesting thing that methylene blue does that I think is fantastic is it shifts the metabolism towards oxidative phosphorylation away from fermentation. Right? Why is that cool? Because remember, we've talked in the past about taking DCA, dichloroacetate. All right, dichloroacetate prevents glucose from being fermented, and it has to either the cell either dies or it goes into the mitochondria. Alpha lipoic acid, same kind of thing. Once that pyruvate gets in, it changes it so they can't get out. So the combination of the DCA and the ALA, alpha lipoic acid, are ways of not allowing CFCs to eat their normal way, and they're going to have to go through oxidative phosphorylation. Now, methylene blue also favors that. So, in other words, you're pushing the CFCs to be back to normal. You're saying, okay, you guys have had fun, get back to normal. Stop acting like that. Stop fermenting. Start doing it the right way, right? Amazing. Anyway, so methylene blue, fantastic, Tommy. And so now NMN, to talk about NMN and NMN, okay, we've got to realize that it's a precursor to NAD, right? And okay, so NAD, everyone has probably heard of NAD plus because it's become so fashionable in fashionable medicine. I mean, functional medicine. It's become so fashionable that everyone's doing it. Yeah. Oh, yeah. Did you get in the NAD? Oh, yeah. Do you have NAD in your clinic? Oh, of course I have NAD in my clinic. Anyway, it's one of those things, right? So, anyway. So, the NMN, which is a precursor. So, just to let you know that NAD is so important. It's such an important molecule, right? It's uh, 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 okay. So what does it do? NAD. It is involved with. Okay, first of all, NAD. It's required for intracellular homeostasis. In other words, for the cell to remain functioning, it needs NAD. Number one. It's necessary for growth. Number two. It's necessary for DNA to replicate. It's necessary to produce free radicals when they need it for purpose, and it's necessary to slow down that free radical production when you don't need it, right? It's also necessary for keeping the mitochondria balanced and functioning. Okay, so now as we age, and by the way, you can make NAD from two ways. One is from vitamin B3, right? Nicotinamide, nicotinic acid, nicotinamide, vitamin B3, right? That's the main way that mammals make it. The other way is we have the chitinine pathway, which is how we kind of maintain the levels. And that comes from tryptophan. You all remember tryptophan. Tryptophan turns into serotonin until the lights go out, and then it becomes melatonin. But it can also, instead of going that way, go this way and the chitinine pathway and wind up producing NAD. Yeah. So when you understand how incredibly beyond comprehension complicated this is, the way it all works. And precise down to the proton. It's precise. And it does all it is so incredibly full of, and it is a manifestation of intelligence. How the hell could anyone ever say it's randomly happened? It's like, I don't know. I don't know. I don't know. I don't know. I talk to people, all right, just trying to convince me of the most bizarre things. Uh, anyway, the biology, life is so incredibly intelligent. Its substance is intelligence. All right. So now, um, it turns out that our production of NAD declines with age, and so do we. We decline with age, right? Okay. So when we think of what happens with aging, we get our epigenetic shifts. In other words, the genetic expression of our cells is starting to change. Our our genome, our DNA becomes like unstable, right? Um, the ability, what they call nutrient sensing ability, right? The nutrient sensing ability is like, you've heard of, what is that? mTOR, right? You've all heard of mTOR. All right, so that has to do with proteins. It senses. It's a way of, it's a molecular way of sensing that there's a protein deficit and it needs to start producing. And then you've heard of AMP kinase. AMP kinase senses a energy deficit. Anyway, so these are so that all that kind of goes down, right? And then it, your telomeres start to get shorter, right? Those, you get mitochondrial dysfunction. You get more and more cellular senescence. That's where a cell won't do anything. It's not dead, but it won't do anything. It just kind of sits there. Stem cells get exhausted, and then the communication between that cell and other cells is down. So that's what is decreased. That's what happens with aging. It's all reversed with NAD. Can you imagine? You can reverse that with NAD plus. Wow. All right. So NMN will do that. If you take NMN, yes, definitely, it's going to increase your NAD uh, uh, biosynthesis, right? It increases it, right? You're going to produce more NAD because NMN, once it's swallowed, pretty rapidly does that. Okay. And it improves mitochondrial function. And actually, remember, one thing very, very important is this. This is like an absolute truism. When we look at animals, from rabbits to elephants, and we look at longevity, how long are they living? Not looking at anything else. Longevity is directly related to the integrity of the mitochondrial membrane, the strength, its ability to resist being oxidized. That, that's a profound understanding. The mitochondria are what, when they get knocked out, is when you develop CFCs, chronic fatigue, you name it. So really, mitochondria means energy, and we all know that as long as there's energy, we're alive, and when their energy is gone, we're not. So fundamentally, let's do that. Let's improve our mitochondrial functioning, right? Okay, so that's why this is a really good question. So how do we do that? Yes, NMN, yes, can definitely do that, right? We get small amounts of it, like in avocados and the cruciferous vegetables and soy and cucumber and stuff like that. But mainly we make it. We have to make it, right? Um, now, the okay, so but I want to also bring another couple ones up, substances that you may not have heard of, right? So okay, so remember NAD all of your metabolism is required, your mitochondrial respiration, Krebs cycle, ATP production, whether or not you make reactive oxygen species. It even helps with, these words. I know you're not going to know, post-translational transcription, but all these things. And it makes the second messenger generation, which is cyclic AMP and stuff like that. You don't need to know that. All you need to know is that these are like, no matter what happens to a cell, no matter what connects to it, binds to it, whatever, and it's going to signal in for the cell to do something. There are these molecules called second messengers, cyclic AMP, cyclic GMP. They depend on NAD. So wow. So NAD is like way important. And in fact, there's an enzyme that breaks it down. There's a couple of enzymes that break it down. It's the CD38 and this CD73, 173, no 73, that break it down. And those actually are biomarkers. If you see those going up, like in what is it, CLL, in CLL, chronic lymphocytic leukemia, if that's up, it's a very poor prognosis. All right, so. Because those break down NAD. They break it down. They don't let it be. Yeah. Okay. Now, the other thing is that NAD that's not in the cell and was outside the cell is necessary for T cell functioning. T cell functioning. So it's like, whoa. All right. Now, I wanted to talk about something you didn't mention, Tommy, and that is there's a couple other ones. So there's this one is called 5-amino 1-MQ. Okay. And it blocks the activity of the nicotinamide N-methyltransferase. Okay. NNMT, which and that is an enzyme that goes against all this, that turns it all off. Okay. Anyway, it blocks that, right? So by blocking that, it allows the increase of NAD production. That's pretty important. Okay. That's pretty important. Now, it also turns out that it weight loss, you lose weight. If you're diabetic type 2, it increases insulin sensitivity. But everybody who's got CFC needs to improve their insulin sensitivity, right? You need to. You don't want insulin resistant. You need to do that. Okay, so that's what you want to do. Okay, so and they're using it now. 5-amino 1-MQ is being used. It's a peptide, by the way. Is being used for obesity. It's being used, reversing obesity, anti-aging, all that sort of thing. Okay. So anyway, it like penetrates the mitochondrial membrane and repairs the DNA in there. It's pretty amazing. All right. It's a peptide, which means it's just strung together some amino acids. There's not enough of them to call it a protein. It's a peptide, but you can take it daily. Yes, 5-amino 1-MQ. Now, there's a couple other peptides that are very important because I'm glad you brought this up because we're talking about mitochondria, right? It is a mitochondrial problem. So how else can we improve mitochondria? Am I getting late? What time is it? 8:20. All right. Are you guys okay? I mean, I went way off, but I'm not way off. I'm right on. So, the other one that I wanted to talk about was it's called MOTS-C, MOTS-C. Now, this is a mitochondrial product. When mitochondria are being stressed for whatever reason, one of the things they do as a response is they produce this RNA, which goes to the nucleus. And then the nucleus starts producing ways of protecting the cell. All right. But specifically, it increases the AMP kinase. We mentioned the AMP kinase a moment ago about it senses energy deficits. So it improves energy. AMP kinase gets increased when you exercise, when you move around. So AMP kinase stimulates mitochondria to work better. So the MOTC stimulates the nucleus to produce factors that protect the mitochondria. Number two, it makes the mitochondria work better, work faster. It increases, and it also increases mitochondria to reproduce, mitochondrial biogenesis. MOTS, MOTS. Now that one you have to inject small amount. You can do, 5 milligrams subcutaneous daily. The problem with all these peptides is that they're fantastic, but they're so expensive. And the greatest country in the world has just basically recently changed their reclassified them so they cannot be compounded anymore. It was for our safety. It's for our. They want to protect us. They care about us. That's all they do. They don't ever think about themselves. They just care about us. And so everything they do is to help us. So, and that's why we elect them, right? It's a fantastic system. Okay, so now what's interesting about this MOTC peptide is that it's upregulated by stress, right? So when you're stressed out, physical stress or psychological stress, the mitochondria are saying we got to get some more energy, and so they start producing this. Well, guess what? They have found that centenarians, they studied the Japanese centenarians, have a significant increase or amount of MOTC. Pretty cool, huh? So, in other words, MOTC is going to make your mitochondria. So, if you imagine we're doing all this stuff, right? Methylene blue, the NMN, and the MOTC, all right, and the 5-amino 1-MQ, right? Your mitochondria are going to be more effective, stronger. By the way, you're also doing what? You're eating lots of healthy fats, chia, 6 tablespoons a day. Yes, 6 tablespoons a day. Porridge. You're eating 3 ground tablespoons of flax at least in a nut milk. And you're eating nuts, seeds, nut butters, seed butters, avocado. You're doing all that because you know that the peroxidizability index of the mitochondrial membrane is inversely proportional to longevity. The opposite is the way we would say it. The integrity, the strength of the mitochondrial membrane made of fats is equal to longevity. So I better eat fats, right? What kind of fats? Healthy fats. Fats for humans. Fats for humans don't come marbled through muscle meat, through muscle fibers. Fats for human come in the form of seeds and nuts. What can I say? So anyway, pretty cool. And the MOTC also can get rid of reverse the diabetes types too. But if you're still eating terribly, it doesn't matter because you're going to keep making it. So it always comes down to, are you going to keep producing the condition or not? All right. Now, there's one other peptide that I think is probably the most incredible. Well, they're all incredible. Now, remember, these peptides are made in our body normally. So we're not talking about drugs. We're talking about peptides, or strings of amino acids that our body makes for these purposes. We're just augmenting it. Anyway, when you look at the mitochondria, there's a inner membrane and an outer membrane. Hey, how come we didn't get the thing this week? Usually at 1 hour, remember at 1 hour? At 1 hour, TikTok requires me to play the jigsaw puzzle. It didn't do it this week. Anyway, um, so you've got the inner mitochondrial membrane and the outer, and it's in there. The whole production of energy is happening right in the inner and then in that space before, which is between the outer and the inner membranes of the mitochondrial membrane. So if you look at the inside of the mitochondrial membrane, there are like these valley, like this. It's like this. I'm not showing you real well, but imagine like a teardrop, and then a teardrop, and then a teardrop, right? And then it's up in those areas there where it actually happens, and the part that makes that happen is a lipid, a fat that we make, we produce. Our body produces, it's called cardiolipin, and the only place in the body that it's made is the mitochondria. And it serves that one purpose of like initiating the whole electron transport, the whole process of energy making, cardiolipin. And so now the cardiolipin's role is to keep that whole area there in a particular shape so that it can happen, so that the whole process can happen, right? And it also helps the cardiolipin also helps get the first molecules in and going. So it's essential. It's the gatekeeper. Now, as we age, or we eat non-human food, that cardiolipin lipid winds up getting oxidized. And when it gets oxidized, it starts to, those tight little curves in there start to open up and they get wider. And when that happens, the function of the mitochondria goes way down and it's real slow. And so that's what so when you look at an older person walking down like this, real slow, you got to imagine their cardiolipin is all oxidized, and they can't, no matter what kind of nutrients they're getting, they're not able to do what they need to do with it because they're, just fundamentally at that level there. So guess what? Right, you're right. There is a peptide called SS31 that undoes that. Kind of amazing, right? SS31 goes in there, restores all that cardiolipin, your inner membrane, your mitochondria, and you've got your back to having your highly functioning mitochondria. It repairs the mitochondrial defect that occurs with aging and or eating the way most people eat. So you got SS31, you've got 5-amino 1-MQ, you've got NMN, you've got methylene blue, and you're eating fats. And you're moving around a lot, right? You're moving around a lot to keep your all that moving around does. Like you can't just say it does. It does everything from immunity, but in this case, it increases AMP kinase, which is energy, and mitochondrial functioning. Movement increases myocardial function. And all those things are going to keep our mitochondria powerful, strong. And if you've got powerful and strong mitochondria, you don't have CFCs, because CFCs are fermenting because they don't have mitochondria. So if you restore the mitochondria, so good question, Tommy. All right, so here's Jeanette, and she says, what supplements do you suggest someone to take to help keep the immune system to par and help prevent CFCs on an everyday basis since we are surrounded by toxins everywhere. Yeah. So, okay. Jeanette, good question. We are surrounded by toxins. And the first thing we've got to do is eliminate those that have gotten into our body through cleansing, biological dentistry. And then we need to avoid situations that are going to increase the toxins coming in. Okay. So, more so than supplements. In other words, you don't eat something that's toxic, that's got toxins in it, right? And you don't, you don't, get exposed to radiation. You avoid all those things, and you look at it in your the stuff you use for cleaning your house, everything. So you learn to avoid all these toxins, right? So by avoiding them all, living a really healthy life, eating real food, going to bed early, and all that stuff, you're doing all that. Now, what supplements are we going to take? And you can't take supplements just to help your immune system, because you have to remember the body is it is one system. So, example, the relationship between our thyroid function, and our immune system is so intimate as to not even be two systems. And our thyroid is so dependent on our adrenal function. And all of that is dependent on our autonomic nervous, it's like you just can't separate it all. So what you do is you just have to get the whole organism into a healthy life, into balanced life, where it is satisfying all of its biological requirements, which is nutrients, rest, movement, all of the requirements, breathing. So, but so for thyroid, because we know that everyone and since thyroid is one of the major conductors of the immune system, we know that it requires iodide, and we know that we don't get enough in our from our diet, so we have to take iodine. So I would recommend that Lugol's or iodoral, and then I would make sure you're going to balance your thyroid by taking a natural thyroid along with it. You're going to use your basal body temperatures to determine how much you need, so that your thyroid is functioning optimally while you are replacing the deficit of iodine that you never got. That you never got because you didn't grow up in Japan. And then as you're getting older, your melatonin is going to go down, and because you're living in a world that is filled with people that are evil, and they're trying to kill us. One of the things they're doing is ensuring that we lose function of our pineal glands, which produce melatonin, right? So we got all this fluoride and stuff like that going on, and we have calcium fluoride and blah, blah, blah. So we need to take extra melatonin. Period. Number one. Number two, iodine, melatonin, get the thyroid, right? The other thing is you want to vitamin C, unless you got to take extra vitamin C. Why? Vitamin C switches. It helps. One of the things, all the things I talked to you about before, but it also turns the immune system back to Th1 from a Th2. So the polarity goes to Th1. Why is that important? Because Th1 is the position, the orientation of the immune system you need to eliminate CFCs and to stay healthy. Vitamin C helps that. Does that. Vitamin C is also necessary for T cell function. We know that the amount that's in a lymphocyte that's activated of ascorbate is it what, like 20 times more than is in our blood? Like really high levels of ascorbate required for lymphocytes to function. So yeah, so you've got to be taking it all day long just for that. And the way we said, you got to take high doses of vitamin A, the carotenoids, the mixed carotenoids, not just beta carotene, the mixed carotenoids, because they are essential to immune function. Take like 40,000 units a day, and check your levels periodically. Make sure your levels are at the upper limits of normal. Okay, and then vitamin D. Like vitamin D is a part of the immune system. That's not even thought about in those terms, but it's actually required. You want to get your level up to around 100. Vitamin D3 with K2. So you can take that. You take whatever you need. Start out 30, 40,000 a day until you get up there. Once you get up there, figure out how much you need to maintain it. 20,000, 10,000, whatever. Maintain it. You got your vitamin A maximized, vitamin D maximized. You're doing your vitamin C the way you need to, right? Got your iron, your iodine, thyroid balanced, melatonin, and then minerals. You got to get some minerals. And the selenium, manganese, magnesium, molybdenum, boron. There's a lot of them. So there's a lot of pills, or you could they have these drinks that are made from the shale. I think they get it from Utah and places like that. Or you get like a multi-mineral complex. Where is it? I thought I had mine around here. Oh, it's in the other room. Anyway, most of what I need is this one thing. So I just take two of those 2 or 3 times a day. Because you need minerals. Why do you need minerals? Minerals are the battery for enzymes. And what do enzymes do? Enzymes are how we are able to continue to have, they're what power, they bring the electricity in, they bring the power into enzymes that are allowing us to have 36 septillion chemical reactions every second. Sextillion, 21 zeros, sextillion. Every second. They all need enzymes to do that. And those enzymes need minerals to get that. Those minerals are molybdenum, manganese, potassium, iron, selenium. Yeah. All right. So those are fundamentally all you need. Now, in addition, you could take the mushrooms like the maitake, shiitake, turkey tail, agaricus blazei. Yeah, and get any combination of them. I would always trust, when it comes to medicinal mushrooms like that, I would always trust products from Japan, because they've done all the research on it. They're like, that's what they do. And now that's supplements. In addition, what you can do is, what's important is for your immune system is thymosin alpha 1, which is a peptide that you would inject daily. Thymosin alpha 1, it's a 28 amino acid peptide produced by your thymus gland that makes T cells active and strong and activates natural killer cells. Yeah, you need it. And that goes down as we age as well. So you that. Number 2, there's another peptide, MET5, which is short for methionine and cephalin. And the reason they say 5 is because it's only 5 amino acids, normally made by the brain, central nervous system, parts of the sympathetic nervous system, and the adrenal. And this 5 amino acid peptide is responsible for maintaining immunity and coordinate it with the hormone system, which, as I already told you, runs it, right? Like thyroid, not just the thyroid. So, uh, anyway, it's a very important hormone peptide we make. So by injecting it, it actually goes in and reverses, listen, the immune suppression that the tumor microenvironment produces. Those are the things I would say for that one. Okay. No. And this is Megan. Let me see. How are we doing with time? Okay, good. Megan. Aloha. Diagnosed ovarian CFCs. Had tumors removed. Doing frontline chemo now. About to do third of 6. Protein markers are already in the normal range. I'm also doing 2 week on and 1 off of ivermectin, then bendazole / mebendazole, albendazole, nitazoxanide, tutka, zinc, black seed oil, modified citrus pectin, berberine, and curcumin. What is your opinion on stopping chemo at number 4 and continue with Avastin and the above protocol? What is your thoughts on Avastin and maintenance drugs? Thank you. Okay, so Megan, now I don't have the full picture here. So if you had your tumors removed, so there was no tumors. So I'm assuming they took out your ovaries and your uterus, right? And I guess wherever else if they saw it anywhere else, right, they would have taken it out. You had over stage 3C, so they were, there was probably some lymphatic involvement. So they removed the tumor, or did they not get it all? They removed the tumor, then the question becomes, why would you do chemo at all? Anyway, so I don't know what your situation is there. If I were in that position, I can't tell you what to do, but if I were in that position, I would stop, and I would not do Avastin. Excuse me, I'm really tired. If you look at Avastin, if you look at the research on Avastin, read it carefully. It's at best, it's going to give you a few months. But at best, rarely happens. You get all these side effects. And you do not have an Avastin deficiency. The goal of Avastin is a noble goal, and that is to stop angiogenesis, to prevent new blood vessel formation in the tumor. But you can do that with other things. Look up on PubMed the role of ascorbate and angiogenesis. You'll be blown away. Look at the role of curcumin and quercetin on angiogenesis. There's ways of doing it that are not only not toxic, but are really healthy. Now, as far as your protocol, 2 weeks on and 1 week off of ivermectin. Okay. But you got the ivermectin. Now, you don't need 3 benzimidazoles. You got fenbendazole, mebendazole, and albendazole. You don't need that. I would add in another one, and especially with ovarian, is niclosamide. NICLOSAMIDE. MIDE, niclosamide. And you can get that at niclosam.com, NICLOSAM.com. It comes from Lithuania. Anyway, niclosamide is so effective with ovarian that it is now being considered as frontline therapy. And it's an anti-parasitic also. So I would say I would choose either the mebendazole or fenbendazole and none of the other. And then just ivermectin, mebendazole, for example, niclosamide. Nitazoxanide is good. I would also add in tinidazole and the other stuff. The zinc should be in your multi-mineral complex. Black seed oil, terrible stuff. Tastes horrible. You take at least 2 tablespoons a day. Modified citrus pectin is good, and berberine and curcumin. They're good. They're very good. But the problem is curcumin. You only can absorb 3% of what you ingest. Berberine is very good for the the underlying glucose and insulin dynamic. It does a lot of really good stuff. It's kind of like metformin. So your protocol sounds good, but you need more. You need the other things that we just discussed with. Who was it? Was it Jeanette? Yeah, I think so. Yeah. Okay. Excuse me. All the other supplements. Remember we talked about that? Okay. Now, wow. Can you imagine being cold here? I got to turn off the air conditioning. Give me 1 second, please. Wow. It was cold. All right. So where are we? Okay. This is from Bonnie. So my husband has small cell lung CFCs and is on chemo and immunotherapy, 3rd round. His ferritin went up to 700 with a normal iron. I know that is often a sign of proliferation, but also a side effect of his immunotherapy. He just had an MRI at the same time that showed most of his brain mets were almost gone, and his doctor was very pleased with that. He is taking artemisinin also and milk thistle green tea extract, turmeric, balasta, yay, and ivermectin fenben protocol. Any thoughts on lowering this and the reason? All right, so the ferritin is a biomarker for proliferation, absolutely. Ferritin also goes up in acute inflammation. It's one of the acute phase reactants. Okay, it goes up, but that'll be short lived. It won't stay up if you're inflamed. But if you're chronically inflamed, no. But the fact is that the ferritin does go up, and if you've got a ratio of ferritin to iron greater than 5, then you've got some CFCs going on. And his sounds like if he's got a normal iron, then he's very much got a very high ratio. How do you bring that down? You don't bring it down specifically because there's too many variables that contribute to it happening. It's actually serving a purpose in the whole metabolic drama. What you've got to do is deal with the fundamental problem, which is the CFCs. Now, if he's got a small cell lung, I would definitely, that's what Joe Tippins had. So, do his protocol for sure. But it's gone into the brain. And I'm assuming you have already, I'm not going to assume it, have you already gone to a real biological dentist and had that checked out? Have you? And if you haven't, tomorrow, biological dentist, 3D cone beam CT, find out what's going on and get it fixed. An absolute must. All right. And then when you say immunotherapy, are you talking about what? It's a you're talking about a checkpoint inhibitor. Is what you're talking about. You're talking about PD-1 or PDL-1 inhibitors, right? And nivolumab, is that what he's on? Is not nivolumab. Anyway, those work when the tumors are surrounded by T cells. And when they're not surrounded by T cells, which is most often, then doing the checkpoint inhibitor, blocking it, doing the checkpoint inhibitor won't help, because you don't have the T cells there that have now been freed. Because the idea of the checkpoint inhibitor is to block this inhibition of the immune system and let the immune system do its job. But if it's not there, it's not going to do it. So how do you get it there? One of the ways of getting the tumors surrounded by T cells is ivermectin. It's probably one of the only things I know of that converts what they call a cold tumor into a hot tumor. So that's you're doing, that's a good thing there, right there. But the PD, rather than what they're calling immunotherapy, which I don't call immunotherapy, and the chemo, you could be doing artesunate, IV vitamin C, plus you're doing all the things we already talked about up there with Janet of the supplements, melatonin, all these things. Velastus, fantastic. But like I said, Bonnie, specifically lowering the ferritin is not possible. Because the increase in ferritin is a response to all this stuff going on. So you got to just get rid of all this stuff. And you do that by restoring healthy physiology, eliminating all possible toxic contributors that are started this in the first place. And then finally, you've got to wake up his immune system too, because his immune system has been paralyzed by this whole process. And that's why we use TA1, thymosin alpha 1, and we use the methionine and kefalin, right, to undo that. And yeah, that's exactly. I mean, that those are my thoughts on it. And is Becky, she goes, what best steps can we take to prevent and minimize the risk of CFCs? Exactly what we've been talking. Everything that, here's the thing, a very important concept. Whatever is needed to be restored to health, the same thing is needed to maintain health. They're not different. Health is the consequence of living healthy only. There's no other way to get health. There's no other way to obtain health other than living healthy. So therefore, but since we live in a very artificial world and we're inundated with artificial everything, we've got to go beyond just living. And it's hard to live healthy in an artificial world. So unless you're living, the perfect life somewhere, you're being exposed to all sorts of stuff. So we need all the interventions we talk about, that we have to do. So, but you got to be eating the right food. You got to have gotten rid of all those toxins. So get rid of do all that. Go to a biological dentist. Get that taken care of. Do a 8-week, 6-week, 4-week, 3-week juice cleanse. Just drink 3-4 quarts a day. Don't eat. Just do that. Get your colon cleaned. Keep moving all day long. Go to bed at 8 o'clock. Take melatonin. Take the iodine. Take all those things we were talking about. Vitamin C, vitamin A. Get a rebounder. Be moving all day long. Go for walks. Stay connected to nature. Avoid toxins. I mean, that's it. Okay, last one here. James. My future stepson is in 4 years of remission after lymphoma. According to his oncologist, he has to receive an IgG infusion every other week for the rest of his life because of his chemo. He's also autistic, so it's very difficult and traumatic for him. Are there any alternatives to IgG infusions? Well, James Cook. What a great name. So, you're the guy that discovered Hawaii. Well, I mean, the Hawaiians were there, but you were the British Navy sent you there, and you. But you know what you did, James? You brought cockroaches, measles, and syphilis to the to the Hawaiians. But anyway, you're not that James Cook, I know. Anyway, I really need some more information. I don't know why he necessarily needs IgG infusions because of the chemo. I don't know. I'm not sure what they're referring to. So his immunoglobulin levels are low. Is that true? Do you know that? And I like to see his blood tests. Albumin level, immunoglobulin. You could do a serum protein electrophoresis to look at all the. Look at the whole pattern. And wait a minute, if he got a chemo and now he's gonna need IgG the rest of his life, that's crazy. I mean, the chemo's. Anyway, it's not making sense to me. I think I'm missing something here. So my answer is that I don't think you at all need to do that. I think we need to do what we always do and clean up, get rid of the toxins, wake up the immune system, eat and live healthy. And and that's what we need to do. We don't need to do this. And remember, your oncologist doesn't have any other tools. They don't know about health. They don't know about healthy physiology. They don't even know that's what our attempt is, to restore that healthy physiology. They don't even know that. It's pretty amazing what they don't know. And it's pretty scary what they think they know. Anyway, James, maybe you could. You should got to join the group. Join the CFC group, and let's talk about this in more detail. Right, and come in on the meetings, and we can talk about that. So again, I didn't get to all the questions today, you guys, and I never will, and I so apologize, because here, look at all these. My gosh, I'm going to do these. I'm going to do these first next week. All these questions here on lung, testicular, squamous cell, breast, pancreatic. All right. Okay, everyone. Thank you very much. Sawadee Kap. Kapumaka. Lako. Loko, arena. Namaste, namaskar, and aloha. Aloha to everyone. Have a amazing week. It is the beginning of the week, isn't it? Even for you guys. Where are you all? Yeah. What do you got?